You can't make this up. Two men break into a paranormal museum to steal a doll only to find themselves in a crazy game of cat and mouse with the devil himself. This happened in Mexico City in the year 2004. The two men who pulled off this insane stunt were well-known internet video producers who had gained some level of notoriety for messing around with supernatural things. They were part of a group of friends who were interested in the paranormal, and they would regularly visit haunted places and try to capture evidence of ghosts or other supernatural entities. They made videos out of these expeditions and uploaded them online, where they gained millions of views. But this time they went a little too far, because what they did was not just reckless, it was pure evil. The museum that they decided to rob was the Museum of the Paranormal, also known as the House of Spirits. It was founded by a renowned paranormal investigator named Jaime Maussan, who had spent years researching the occult and the supernatural. The museum was filled with artifacts and relics that were said to be haunted, including cursed objects, demonic statues, and even a portal to hell. Now, we don't know if the last one is true, but hey, if you have the opportunity to steal a ticket to hell, would you take it? Our guys didn't think so, which is why they broke in. They managed to sneak in at night when the museum was closed, and they brought with them cameras and audio recorders to document their experience. Their plan was to upload their footage online and gain even more notoriety for their channel. But they never expected what happened next. What they were after was a doll that was said to be possessed by a demon. The doll was known as the Devil Doll, and it was said that anyone who looked into its eyes would go insane. The doll was kept in a glass case in the middle of the museum, and it was surrounded by warnings that no one should touch it. But our guys didn't care about any of that. They wanted the doll so that they could put their own footage on it. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe if you haven't so that you won't miss any stories. Also, we've been getting a lot of spam comments lately, so please make sure to report any comment that looks like this. Thanks for your cooperation. As soon as they touched the doll, everything went black, and then they heard a voice that said, "You have unleashed me." The next thing they knew, they were in another place, a dark and dusty attic filled with cobwebs and old furniture. And in the middle of the attic was the same glass case containing the doll. But now it was open and the doll was missing. Then they started hearing footsteps behind them, and they turned around to see a tall, thin man with a long face and glowing red eyes. He was wearing a black suit and a top hat, and he had a cane in his hand. But what scared them the most was the fact that he had a pair of horns on his head. They tried to run away, but they couldn't get out of the attic no matter how much they searched. They found themselves trapped in an endless labyrinth of darkness and despair. And all the while, they could hear the footsteps getting closer and closer behind them. They ran into a room and locked the door, but it didn't help. The footsteps stopped outside the door, and then they heard a knock. Knock, 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 knock. Each knock sounded like the tapping of a demon's claw on wood. They didn't answer, of course, but the knocking continued for hours, never stopping. Finally, they found another exit and they ran through it as fast as they could. They stumbled into a forest and kept running until they saw a road. They flagged down a car and begged the driver to take them away from that place. The driver agreed and dropped them off at the nearest gas station. When they looked back, they saw the tall man with the horns standing at the edge of the forest watching them. He seemed disappointed that they had escaped his grasp, but he wasn't done with them yet. They drove back to Mexico City and tried to get on with their lives. But they soon realized that they were being followed. Wherever they went, they saw the same tall man with the horns lurking in the shadows. They couldn't get rid of him no matter how fast they drove or how far they walked. And then one night he finally caught up with them. They were at home, but they didn't feel safe there anymore. So they barricaded themselves in a room and called the police. But when the police arrived, they couldn't find the man anywhere. They lived in constant fear for the next few weeks. They couldn't sleep, they couldn't eat, and they couldn't work. They were trapped in their own homes like animals. One day, they decided to visit a priest and ask for help. The priest listened to their story and told them that they had unleashed a demon, and the only way to stop it was to return the doll to the museum. They didn't want to do that, but they had no other choice. They returned to the museum and placed the doll back in its case, but it was too late. The demon had already claimed them as its own, and they would never be free from its clutches. The tall man with the horns appeared behind them and smiled. He told them that he had been waiting for them and that he was glad that they had come back. He said that he would grant them 3 wishes in exchange for their souls. They refused and tried to run away, but it was no use. The demon was too powerful for them. It dragged them into the portal to hell and they disappeared forever. Now, whether their souls actually went to hell or not is unknown, but the last anyone ever saw of them was them being dragged into that swirling vortex of darkness. As for the museum, it was abandoned soon after this incident and it fell into disrepair. The building stood empty for years, and many people believed that the demon was still trapped inside. Some people even reported seeing the ghost of the tall man with the horns standing on the roof of the building. Now, let's get back to the video. In recent years, there has been a surge in popularity of paranormal investigation groups. These groups are often led by self-proclaimed experts who claim to be able to communicate with the dead or even summon demons. But in reality, many of these so-called experts are nothing more than frauds looking to cash in on people's fears and superstitions. For example, there was a guy named Zach Bagans who became famous for his show ghost adventures. He traveled all over the world investigating haunted places and talking to ghosts. But it was later revealed that he was faking most of his paranormal activity by hiring actors or using special effects. Another fraud was caught pretending to be a psychic medium, fooling thousands of people who paid her a lot of money for her services. She was exposed when a journalist infiltrated her group and discovered that she was using cold reading techniques to fake her psychic abilities. These are just a few examples of the many frauds who are preying on people's belief in the paranormal. While there may be some people who genuinely believe they can talk to the dead or summon demons, most of these claims have been debunked as hoaxes. It is important to be critical of those who make these claims and not to fall victim to their scams. Do and trust people who claim to have special powers or who charge you a lot of money for their services. Do your research and be skeptical of anything that sounds too good to be true. And yes, this is why our guys decided to rob the museum, because they thought that all of this stuff was a hoax. They didn't believe that the doll was possessed by a demon, but they were wrong. So if you're rethinking about getting involved in paranormal investigation, or if you've had an encounter with the supernatural that you can't explain, just remember to be careful. Not everything is what it seems, and not everyone has your best interest at heart. You might end up making a deal with the devil without even realizing it. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out the next one where a demon takes over a school. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay safe and keep an open mind, but don't believe everything you see or hear.